Hey folks, welcome back to the Dismas Diaries. I've got a real treat today for episode 7 of my first series of podcasts. I got a guy named Jimmy, who I've known, interesting, for about a year or a little less. I used to do comedy with him and stand up in Wilmington. And Jimmy had a real change in his direction of his comedy a while back. And I just want to talk to him about that because it's kind of like, from what he described it to me, is it's kind of a little bit of the conversion thing that we've been talking about in our podcast. So hopefully you're going to enjoy Jimmy as much as I enjoy Jimmy. He's a great guy. He's a very funny guy too. So hopefully this is going to be good. Enjoy. Well, hi, Jimmy. We haven't seen each other for a while. How's things going?
Doing really good, Jim. Really good. How about yourself?
Well, if I got any better, I'd be twins. So that's my line.
Love it.
You don't want to see twins in me, that's for sure. We've known each other. How long have we known each other now? About a year, right?
Coming up on a year, pretty close. Yeah, I think we met last summer sometime. So,
Yeah, we were doing comedy in Wilmington.
yeah, doing.
I
I
was
think
I was nervous as all get out my first time. You comforted me, made me feel like I was doing okay.
you did really good, Jim. You did really good, especially for your first time. You and I think Andy did really well too that night.
Yeah, Andy's a good guy. I'm missing hanging out with him. He's moving back to Maine now,
Okay.
so he'll be gone in a couple of weeks. But your comedy was pretty well polished by then. You'd been doing comedy for quite a while when I met you.
Yeah, I had a couple years under my belt. Not full time, but here and there as I would get the energy to do it. Yeah, so kind of somewhat polished. Yeah, I appreciate that.
And you've been doing you did an opening act for somebody?
Yeah, so actually very recently, I think you know him. He's a African American gentleman, Louis T. He
Yeah,
reached
yeah.
out, yeah, he reached out to me and gave me a chance to do a show at the Wilmington Distillery a couple weeks back, and so I got to do. I think he gave me 5 minutes, but he was like, just until you run out of material, he was like, just go at it. And so I was the opening act. It was really cool. It was an awesome opportunity to, get your name out, get my name out there, and also I think made a couple bucks on that one, so that was really cool as well.
A professional gig for a change, huh?
Professional gig, that's right. I was like,
Well,
I knew I made it when I was doing comedy in a distillery on a Sunday at 3 p.m. in Wilmington, but
that's the height of it right there, right? You can't go
that's
any higher.
I knew I made it.
So when I was listening to your comedy, I was really impressed at the way that you had some real good stories, some real good things going there, and I laughed at them. I wouldn't want to repeat them on this, but there were a couple of them that just made knocked me off my wheelchair. I was really impressed with it. And then something you changed your whole direct, or not the whole direction of your comedy, but somebody changed some of the things in your comedy. What happened there? Why did you do that?
Um, yeah, well, thank you for the compliments, but Jim, when I first started doing comedy, I was doing a lot of the dirty stuff, shock value, the inappropriate jokes, the sex jokes, things that get cheap laughs, and it works. It works, and so I did it. But every time I would walk off stage, I would feel this weight like on my chest. I'm a Christian, and like I wasn't honoring God, and I claim to be a Christian, but then my actions weren't matching. Weren't matching that calling. And so, um, I think there's a lot of gifts that we're given. And I've been given the ability to make people laugh and stage presence and public speaking. And you can use it many ways. I was using it to get cheap laughs, but I realized that I wasn't honoring God, and I could use that gift to be able to connect with people, people that I would not otherwise talk with. And I thought, if God gave me this gift, why am I using it to tear down instead of building up? And so there was one night, I think I called you about it, and I was like, Jim, I, I have this epiphany, and so I made this choice. I was like, I'm going to walk away from the dirty comedy and start working on clean material and wholesome material. And, it could still be edgy, but it doesn't have to be all 7 words you can't say on TV kind of comedy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And how did that work out for you?
You know what? I'm getting a lot, like, the crowds are laughing more. Like, like I said, it's easy to get a laugh with a cheap joke, but to put effort into a clean joke that makes you think and engages people, that's a real talent. And some of the most successful comedians, when you look at like Jim Gaffigan, and like Brian Regan and some of these guys, like they might have like they might touch their toe on the line, but they really stay behind it and they make you laugh and they do it for a whole hour or more. And so that's my new goal. I'm going to try to use my gifts to glorify God in a way that can still make people laugh, but doesn't have to be the bathroom humor or the bedroom humor kind of stuff.
What I'm
So
hearing you say is you can do humor that's not religious in its nature, but it's clean, and by it's not being dirty, not being of the lower instincts of man. It is glorifying God because you're talking about the things that are humorous in life without
yeah,
having to go there. So there's a way of doing this without you don't have to make your whole act about religion or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I would find it hard pressed to do a lot of religion jokes in my act, even though I have
yeah,
a background there. So, but writing, I had a real appreciation for writing jokes and how difficult it is. That's a real work, a lot of work to write jokes, isn't it?
it really is. A lot of effort goes into it because I mean, Jim, we've worked together on a couple, sets of material, and it's easy to be funny in one moment or in one joke, but to build that into an arc, right? Like all the pieces and have them connect somehow. That's where the challenge comes in. That's where I've kind of struggled. It's easy to be funny here, but to be consistently and to tell that story is challenging.
It is. Now, what I'm most amazed at is that you've gone this direction, although you weren't having a difficulty. Like when I'm talking about conversion mostly, I talked to you about this podcast over here. I'm talking about the change in the direction of our lives, and they happen for a variety of reasons. Sometimes they're like in my case, I had to change my life because my life was going so badly that I had to change, and I suffered this kind of crushing, soul crushing defeat. And at one point I said to God, take me because I don't want to live this way anymore. And He did in a way that I completely didn't expect it. He took my life and changed it because I had asked Him to.
Yeah.
A lot of people, though, that I'm interviewing on the podcast are experiencing changes in the direction of life that weren't because they were in a bad position. They weren't like suffering. They weren't maybe the internal suffering that you were feeling for that weight on your chest, but it wasn't crushing you. You weren't coming to a bottom of something. What do you think was the impetus for that change? Where at what point did you encounter the God's voice or a voice or something that I'm stretching for words, but you know what I'm
I
talking about.
Yeah, that turning point, that line in the sand was, I got married recently, and I had a lot of my comedy on TikTok and Facebook and all the platforms, and my wife, she's a youth pastor or youth minister. She volunteers in the church a lot in a lot of different places, and we started talking about it. And I started thinking, I said, this comedy is getting a lot of laughs, but would I be okay with her pastor singing it, with her, worship team singing this? Is it that kind of funny? Was it that kind of success that I want to be associated with? And she also has a successful real estate company, and so when on social media, it shows you everyone you're connected to and all the things. And so I started popping up on her friends and her family's timelines and things like that. And so I took my comedy down. I realized, this isn't glorifying God. Not only is it not glorifying God, it's not uplifting my wife. It's not glorifying my marriage, or edifying my marriage. And so that was a big turning point. I realized that God gives you these gifts. You can use them to glorify, or you can use them for worldly, things. He doesn't discriminate when he gives them to you. And so it was kind of eye opening. I'm glad that I caught it kind of early on because it was eye opening to realize that I've been given this gift. Now, how do I use it properly? And so, yeah, that was kind of my line in the sand.
The other thing that I picked up out of that was I believe that some of the things that God gives us are really special gifts that really move us to another place of thought and action in our lives. And you getting married, I think, might have had a lot to do with it. Not just the the part about, well, her stuff is gonna your stuff is gonna show up on her stuff, and then that social media stuff. But the grace of being married makes two people one.
Yeah.
And if she's a youth pastor and she's working in the ministry, and you are trying to be one with her, there's a movement of the soul that goes on there. It seems like that you were gifted. She really was a gift to you in a lot of ways because she brought that godly sense to you. I think people have that happen a lot and they don't realize that it's happening. That's why we Catholics call marriage a sacrament. It's a real sign. It's a presence of Christ in our midst.
Yeah.
Because the two are made one. I think it's a beautiful thing. What do you did
I
did
I
did
think
you
that's a really good point, Jim. Genesis chapter 2, I think it's verse 24. He talks about them becoming one flesh, right? You leave your mother or you leave your family and you become one flesh. And like you said, marriage is a covenant, right? It's not just a contract with the courts. It's an actual covenant between you, your wife, and God. And like you said, Scripture says that two become one flesh. So that means that when I got married, my life stopped being just about me, right? Living just for me. So now everything I say, everything I do, and everything, the way I carry myself reflects on my wife too. We're joined together before God, and the things that I put out into the world now, they don't just carry my name anymore, like they carry our name. And so I had to change my comedy. I couldn't just keep doing dirty jokes that not only dishonored God, but also affect my marriage and affect how, we present ourselves as that one. Because if we're one flesh, then, what I do on stage, it doesn't just impact me, it impacts both of us. And
and it's not just what you do on stage, it's everything any of us do. Everything your wife does affects you, everything you do affects her.
yeah, we're supposed to
I
uplift each other and not drag each other down. So
exactly. And unfortunately, I think that this helping relationship, this wonderful relationship where two people strengthen each other and support each other in the task of living godly lives and doing what God wants us to do. I don't think the current generation realizes just what a wonderful gift that is. A lot of people, even in comedy, what do we hear about marriage most of the time in comedy? My wife, my
my
wife,
wife's XYZ,
yeah,
it's terrible. Take my wife, please. All the
right. It's all breaking the marriage down. And it's in jest, of course, but there's a component to it that doesn't honor, as you say, honor the reality of what a wife is to the husband and the husband is to the wife.
yeah,
Very important people in each other's lives because now your lives are completely blended together. And the other thing for when we talk about as Catholics, we talk about being a sacrament, it's a true sign. When I see a married couple, I see I see God uniting himself to his church, his people, in the person of Jesus Christ. I see Jesus Christ when I see a married couple.
yeah.
And talk about having a responsibility of carrying an image. If you walk around realizing that when I'm with my wife, we are Jesus Christ for people who may not ever open the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I kind of touched that too, as the when you do comedy and you're on stage and you have the audience and all the things, like you have an opportunity to reach a new set of people that you might not have reached before. And so if you are a reflection of Christ, right? And when you're on stage, then that's an opportunity to, I don't want to say witness to people, but kind of in a way, right? Like your behavior of how you conduct yourself reflects in the world. And so if you're reflecting yourself in a godly way on stage, then it's an opportunity for people who may not have ever thought of, like, hey, I'd like to know that person, or why is he so, it's an opportunity to be a witness without necessarily giving testimony.
Yeah, I think people have lost sight of what witness is. Witness just means that I'm being who I am. I'm
Mm,
being completely a human being. Jesus was the ultimate human being, and I'm trying to do that too. I'm trying to do that in all my life, not just when I'm on stage or when I'm interacting with other people. When I don't know people are looking, they say they say, can you be honest? Can you tell the truth when nobody's listening to you? Can you be honest? Can you act well when no one's watching you?
yeah, it's all about that integrity, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. you have an integrity about you now that you didn't have before you made that change.
Yeah,
And I
that's
think the
that's
grace
true.
of God came into your life when you got married, and in a way that it was so powerful.
Yeah,
The grace of God came into my life and changed me in a big way back in 1987.
yeah,
And hopefully, I'm trying my best to honor that. That's what I'm trying to do now. As a matter of fact, I'm not I'm not on this podcast. This is the most I've talked about my story in any of the podcasts.
yeah,
I usually try to interview other people, but in this one, I feel like a kindred spirit. There was something that was not going on in my life that should have been going on, and I knew it, and I didn't. I just didn't know how to get there. You
yeah.
knew how to get there. That's what I really like. Is that you said Jimmy, and I don't know, nobody ever calls me Jimmy either. By the way, I'm Jim or James, but not Jimmy anyway. But nope, I wasn't saying that to myself. I wasn't saying I want to be better. I was saying I don't want to be this way.
Yeah.
Please, God, help me. And He did. And
I've
that
I had a I've had a couple of those cry outs. So I had, the one most recently, but I had a big one in 2018. I was caught up in some addiction stuff. I was anything was powdered was going, going up the and I lived like that for a long time, and I was getting by, and the truth is I was just digging myself deeper, and so I chased that experience, because I didn't want to face what was really going on inside of me. And I had drifted, I'd called myself a Christian, but I had drifted so far from God, Jim, that like 2018, I just hit this wall. I was like done. I was tired of the cycle. I was tired of lying to myself, tired of feeling like, I didn't have any way out. And so I just dropped down and started praying. Like I was like, God, I've been gone for so long, but I know you're there. And as he got a hold of me, and I was able to get clean and turn my life around, and, turn everything over to him, and just, it wasn't easy. It wasn't instant, but facing who you are without a substance to numb you is hard. But God was there, and he brought me through it. He drugged me through it, I think. So
I mean, I always tear up when I think of Luke 15, the story of the prodigal son,
yeah,
and the fact that the son recognized that he was so far away from his father and he'd spurned his father is one thing. That's something that we can all agree on. We've all done that.
yeah,
The thing that really grasps me in Luke 15 is that the father was waiting for him. He was out looking for him. You
yeah,
know, and that's the way that I believe that Jesus wanted us to understand our Father, that He's out there looking for us, He's waiting for us, He's so hoping that we'll come back. And when we do, He rushes out to grab us and to meet us and to just
yeah,
honor us and treasure us. And I don't think before I got to that deep despair, that deep part of my soul, I didn't realize how much He wanted me. As a matter of fact, I thought He didn't want me.
hmm
The opposite is true.
it really
So
was.
I'm really grateful to be able to reflect on that on a daily basis now. I say, no matter what I've done, he wants me to return. And that's what I think was going on with excuse me, my eyes are burning. Every time I start to tear up, my
Yeah,
eyes start burning. Um, that's what I think was going on with Dismas. He realized how far he was away from God. And, he saw this man being crucified next to him who had done nothing wrong and proclaimed he was being proclaimed as the Messiah. And Dismas said, "Please help me."
yeah, yeah. He called out to him. Kind of with the prodigal son, I love that story too, because the father, he doesn't just wait for him to like crawl back. Like he runs out with open arms to welcome him in, and he doesn't lecture him. He just embraces him. He puts a robe on him, he puts a ring on his finger, and he throws a
Right?
celebrate. Like he doesn't shame him. You know what I mean? Like
No, exactly,
it was like he
exactly.
never left. He was just.
All that son needed to do was say to himself, because it was transmitted to the father,
Mhm.
"I screwed up. I messed up. I'm here. Please take me as I am." And
Yeah.
that's the whole thing about conversion is
I was
it's so easy but we don't do it.
That's kind of the gospel in a nutshell, really. The story of the prodigal son. It's, We're the prodigal, right? We've all run from God.
Yep.
We've
Yep.
wasted what He's given us. We've ended up empty. We've, hopefully many of us, we've turned back, and He didn't push us away. He welcomed us back, and that's so beautiful, Jim.
It really is. I don't know if you happen to see any of the Charlie Kirk Memorial
Yeah.
service and Marco Rubio.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that was like a 2 minute nutshell of the entire scripture. That God so loved the world. It's like that um, John God so loved the world that He sent His only begotten Son, the only Son He had to save us.
Yeah.
All you have to do is ask. It constantly blows me away that all I have to do is ask, and He's
Yep.
there. No,
Yeah. John, Jim, sorry, when I during that period, I've had a very successful career for most of my life, and I went through this period where I was when I was successful, I'm like, look what I did, look what I did. And then when I'm in the valleys down here, I'm like, look what God let happen. And I found
yeah,
myself, I found myself drifting from God because I would pray, but when I prayed, I would pray because I needed something. I was in a jam, get me out of this situation, fix this merit, fix whatever. And then I started feeling really
right,
guilty. I'm like, that's not the kind of relationship I want to have. I don't want to go to Him when I only have problems. And so I ended up not praying and losing that relationship with Him because of that guilt. And so it took a long time to be able to come back to Him. And it made me think of that because you said something a second ago, like he's always there. He is always there. Sometimes you
yeah,
have to be quiet and listen, stop doing what you think is best or but He's there, and that's so beautiful. He doesn't turn His back. We turn our back on Him. He doesn't turn His
right.
back on us.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thought that no matter what I do, no matter where I go, He's with me.
Yeah.
Literally, quite with me. He's the only one who is with me all the time,
Yeah.
and I got to honor Him that way. That He is literally my best pal, my best always. He's always there, and I forget that He's there. So I'm grateful that you brought that up. This has been a great interview. This may be the best interview I've done so far. I've gotten really involved in this, and I'm
You
glad you
do you
came
say
on
that to
last
all your
time.
guests? Do you say that to all the guests, Jim?
No, I don't. You've seen the podcast. No, I mean, I I got to tell the listeners and the viewers today that I had a number of people lined up to do interviews, and yet I like to drop these on Thursdays, and I didn't have anybody for this Thursday. They were going to get a couple of this weekend. And then the weekend came and people had this, that, came up to this. They got family life, they got things going on. And out of the blue, I said, I wanted to have Jimmy on here. So let's call him see. Jimmy answered me, yes, I'll do it. Now, 2 hours later, we're on, we're talking, we're having the best time. And I really am grateful to have met you while we were doing comedy, to watch the transformation in your act and the encouragement that you gave me when I was doing it. I'm not doing it anymore, but maybe I'll go back sometime. Who knows?
Maybe it was just a
Okay.
season, you know? It could just be a season. It doesn't have to be your thing, but you did. It was on your bucket list, right? Like you were like, I'm doing this.
I wanted to do it, yep, and I wanted to do it before I died. So I did it. I'm
Yeah.
happy that I did. Oh, I'm glad none of it's on TikTok or anywhere else. But
Yeah.
anyway,
No,
I,
I was really
I
proud of
want
your
to.
transformation story was pretty cool too. Like seeing you from that first day get up there with your, you know, reading from your note cards to like one of the last times I saw you 4 or 5 times later when you had went up and you had pretty much memorized it and you were able to be Jim up there instead of the
Right,
cards. It was
right.
really cool seeing your like arc throughout your journey.
Well, thank you. It's very nice of you to say. I don't know how much of this is going to make it in the final cut, but but I'm very, very grateful that you agreed to come on with me today and to talk about your story. I think it's a real blessing to a lot of people to hear this this wonderful thing that happens when you get married, the grace that you get, and the ability to live in an image as an image of Jesus Christ in this world. What an honor! What a challenge! What a grace! And I'm so glad that you have it. And I hope that you continue to enjoy it. And I hope that you'll continue to refer your friends to my podcast. And
I will.
Enjoy it. Maybe we'll have you back on if you were open to do that. Come back to talk about some other stuff.
Absolutely. You know what? You just said something that struck me, Jim, and not to go on a tangent, but you talk about what a blessing it is to be able to live and be like witnesses for Christ. And there was something, I think it was in Philippians. I want to say it's Philippians. He said, Paul said something along the lines of, for it's been granted to you on behalf of Jesus Christ, not only to believe in him, but also to suffer for him. And I always wondered, like it for a long time, I never understood what that really meant. Like, why is that a blessing to suffer for him? But Paul's point was like that believing in Jesus and suffering for him are both gifts, right? Like faith is a gift, and so is the chance to endure hardship, like in his name, And I thought that was so beautiful now that I have gone further in my spiritual journey to understand like what that means now. So,
I think suffering is real. I think that we can see it in different ways. I've come to understand that everything that God has given me is a gift. The things that I thought were awful in my life, and I mean, losing my leg was an awful thing. I thought it was going to be terrible, but it's not. It's been good for people, other people besides me, and other things that have happened. All the things it says in the recovery that no matter how far down the scale you've gone, you'll see how your experience can benefit others. And that to
100
me is the blessing. I'm useful now to other people in a way that I wasn't before. Not because I wasn't useful before, but because I didn't know enough to take those things that I thought were awful and use them as examples of blessing too.
awesome.
Well, that was something. Jimmy's a really good, funny guy, and his comedy is really good. I really recommend if you have a chance to stop over for stand-up comedy night at Wilmington. There's only one place that happens. So check it out and see if you can go over and give Jimmy some support with his newer God honoring comedy. Um, please don't think less of me because I get emotional about some of the stories and some of the scriptures and some of the ways that God has touched my life. I'm so grateful that He has. One of the reasons that I'm doing this podcast is because I've really experienced His transformational love in my life. Without it, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't probably even be alive. And so I'm so grateful and I need to share that. I don't want to harp on it, but everybody has that happening in their life. I just sometimes think people need to know that other people are doing it and feeling the same things they're feeling. So if you have any comments, let me know. Please don't worry about being outrageous or never having a problem or something that nobody's ever heard before. If there's a name for it, somebody's done it before. So please call me or email me at thedismasdiaries@gmail.com. Or if you got suggestions for another podcast or somebody that might like to do this, let me know. I'm hoping to see you for series one, episode 8, which is coming up this week. I'll drop on Thursday night. I've got somebody coming in tomorrow to do some recording, so we'll have it on time. Thanks for listening and thanks for being with me. I really appreciate it.